We talk a lot about emotional intelligence, healing, and self awareness. But here's a question people don't like to ask. What if the real problem isn't that emotions are complicated? What if it's that we're avoiding the work that it takes to deal with them? Welcome back to the Marcus Allgood Show. I appreciate everybody watching, listening, and sharing the show and getting it out there. If you like the show, give us a 5-star rating on the podcast or like and subscribe on YouTube. Today, we're going to talk about how most people are emotionally lazy. And let's get into what emotional laziness means. Emotional laziness doesn't mean someone is a bad person. It means they avoid difficult conversations. We all do that. Suppress feelings instead of processing them. Blame emotions on others instead of understanding them. Repeat patterns without reflection. So, emotional maturity requires effort. And avoiding difficult conversations is one of the craziest things that we all do because of the fact that we all just don't want to we don't want to feel uncomfortable. We don't want to go down that road. But once we actually do go down that road, it actually feels a lot better after we have that conversation because of the fact that you build it up so much in your head and you're trying to think about what the other person's going to think if you tell them this. And really, you have no clue what that person's going to think. So you might as well just go tell them and have that conversation that you really need to have with them because you don't know how it's going to end up. It could end up really, really good. It could end up really, really bad. But most of the time, it ends up being pretty good in the long run. Ignoring the emotions doesn't make them disappear. It just delays them. It just delays the work. Kind of like going out getting drunk because you had a bad day. When you do that, all you're doing is delaying the emotions you have to feel for the next day. Or if you go get drunk and you have a hangover, you start drinking again, you're just delaying that hangover for the next day. It all works the same way. It's best just to deal with the emotions right away. Why emotional work feels hard? Oh my god, just a lot of times it just feels draining and it just feels like it's just like, ugh, I don't want to do it. But processing emotions requires things most people resist. It's gonna most people resist self-reflection, vulnerability, accountability, patience, uncomfortable conversations, and the self-reflection is one of the hardest things that we all have to do. And when you're getting into self-reflection, it's hard to think about yourself and how you're feeling and how you can change, how you can change the feelings that you have, or having that hard conversation with yourself is really, really hard for people to do. A lot of times when you go out and you talk to a therapist or you talk to a friend, it's easier to talk about them. Well, not a therapist, but it's easier to talk about them than it is about you. But if you're hanging out with the right people, they can ask you the right questions to bring out the better side of you to be able to self reflect on yourself by having those questions out there that you can answer. And just a lot of people don't like being vulnerable because of the fact that they think that other people are going to look down on them or judge them or just not be friends with them anymore. It's really hard to figure out what people can accept with who you are and will you still fit into their life or they'll still fit into your life after you tell them, after you become vulnerable with them. Avoidance is much easier. So people distract themselves with busyness, entertainment, doom scrolling. We all do that. Blaming others. Blaming others is probably one of the easiest things to do. So avoidance feels easier today, but it always costs more tomorrow. And, trying to stay busy and go to do entertainment instead of handling your emotions right away, it's just delaying it over and over and over for the next day. Get out there, handle the emotions and move on. So how emotional laziness shows up. So you're probably going to recognize some of these patterns. Shutting down during conflict, reacting instead of responding, refusing to apologize, repeating the same relationship issues, bottling up feelings until they explode. And that's one of the last one's one of the hardest things that it is. It's hard to deal with a person that bottles their emotions up and then blows up on you at the very end. It's just like it'd be easier just to get the emotions out throughout time instead of bottling them up because a lot of times things are said that you can't take back and that you're going to regret after you say them. So if you're the person that bottles up your feelings, try and release the feelings before you have to explode because of the fact that you don't want to do damage that you could have avoided by blowing up and just going crazy on that time. And always just apologize. Just take one on the chin. It's okay. I mean, I'm not a huge believer in saying sorry for everything because, if you're truly sorry, you probably wouldn't have done it. But there are some mistakes that we do that you do need to apologize for. And then, reacting instead of responding, just respond back to the other people. So these patterns don't come from a lack of emotion. They come from a lack of emotional effort, just putting in the time. Emotions aren't the problem, just avoiding them are. Like those emotions are there, and if you cover them up with alcohol or drugs, things like that, like you're you're just you at a certain point in time you're going to have to feel these emotions and you're going to have to deal with them. So you better learn early and you better figure them out early because once you do, life is much easier to move on to the next thing over and over and over. So, the cost of avoiding emotional work: when emotions are ignored, relationships suffer. We've all seen that. Communication breaks down, resentment builds, stress increases, self awareness stops growing. You just don't become self aware. You have to deal with your emotions, become more self aware. And eventually, those unresolved emotions show up as anger, anxiety, distance, burnout, drinking, alcohol, or I mean, drugs, fighting, yelling at people. Like, just that's all part of the anger part. And you definitely don't want any of these four to get in your way just because you couldn't handle some emotions. So, what you avoid emotionally eventually controls you. It's going to come after you, it's going to look really bad, and it's going to take somebody to actually tell you what's actually going on with you, which is an uncomfortable conversation, and it's up to you to decide whether you can have that conversation with that person or not. So, what emotional immaturity actually looks like is emotional mature people pause before reacting. A lot of times, I think before I say something, I have to really think about it. There's times where you don't fire off that text and you don't. And there's sometimes I do, and I'm like, I probably should have waited. And then there's also times where you should wait 24 hours, see if it's still that big of a deal or not. And if it is, then go ahead and text the person or talk to the person that needs to. Listen before defending, admit when they're wrong, take responsibility for their feelings, seek understanding instead of winning arguments. I think admitting when you're wrong is one of the biggest things that you could do to strengthen relationships and become a better person, because if you can't admit when you're wrong, because we're all wrong, so you might as well just admit it. If you can't do it, you got a long road ahead of you. So this all takes practice. It's not about being perfect, it's about being intentional. Emotional strength isn't about hiding feelings, it's about handling them. Like, take control of them, become at peace with them, and go through them. So, how do we stop being emotional lazy? Practice self reflection. Ask yourself, why did that reaction happen? Have the hard conversations. Avoiding conflict often creates bigger problems later. And I've actually learned over the past couple of years to have those hard conversations with employees and the spouse and the kids and franchises, things like that. Like, you got to take ownership of it and go for it. Take ownership. Your emotions are yours to understand. Only you can really understand your emotions and how you're feeling. So take ownership of them and be proud of them. Slow down your reactions. Responding thoughtfully is a skill. Think about your reaction first. Don't just fire off that text or fire off that email. You're probably gonna regret it if you just fire off like as soon as you get one and just go blah blah blah. Just word salad out. Stay curious. Understanding emotions builds stronger relationships. Always talk to other people, find out what they're feeling, find out what you're feeling. Ask yourself, talk in the mirror to yourself if you have to, or even type up some questions. Ask your brain a bunch of different questions, and your brain will find some answers at some point. So the closing challenge for this week is pay attention to how you handle emotions. Do you face them or do you avoid them? Do you communicate honestly or do you shut down? Emotional growth isn't automatic, it's a choice. Handling emotions takes work, but that work builds stronger relationships, stronger character, and a stronger life. And I appreciate everybody listening. That's the pod. If you want to talk about this more, reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube. And I appreciate everybody watching. Thanks a lot. Bye.